Hey y'all, welcome back to my tennis podcast. I'm your host, TP. I like to think it stands for tennis professional even if my journey is far from complete on the road to pro. This week we saw the finale of the French Open, which was quite a show, might I add, and a history maker. On the men's side, we had a fresh Carlos Alcaraz coming in against a Jannik Sinner who was just off of his straight sets win against Djokovic. The match itself lasted a grueling 5 hours and 29 minutes, making it the longest Roland Garros final in the Open era. To give you a sense of how high quality the match was and how close it was, the first game lasted a whole 10 minutes. Now, what made this match so interesting was that Jannik Sinner was 0-5 against Alcaraz in their previous 5 encounters, and on the other hand, Carlos Alcaraz had never won a 5-set match after being down 2 sets. This meant that by the 5th set, something very special for one of these two players was going to happen, and history was going to be made one way or another. In the end, it was Carlos Alcaraz that reigned supreme, coming back from 2 sets to love to win it in the 5th. Now, if you go to watch the match and you're a bit confused about the format of the 5th set, here, let me tell you a little bit about it. So, in Grand Slams, the 5th set usually has a 10-point tiebreaker. These tiebreaks are usually played at 6-all in the 5th set. But Wimbledon actually, now they've changed it now, but they used to have it so that you played at 12-all. And before that, they used to have it so that you played until someone won 2 games in a row. This rule was pretty quickly changed after John Isner played Mahut for an 11-hour match that spanned 3 days. On the women's side, we have my girl Coco Gauff going up against one of my favorite players, Aryna Sabalenka. Or at least I should say, formerly one of my most favorite. There's a thing with the press conference afterwards, I'll get to that in a minute. But Coco Gauff would take that match and win the title, and then Aryna Sabalenka would get second. Their speeches would be very nice on court, but there was something interesting waiting off court. Frustrated with herself for not winning the final, Aryna Sabalenka, in her post-match press conference, began to say some pretty nasty things. Among those things was that Coco Gauff did not play well, and it was one of Aryna's worst showings that she's ever had. Now, let's detach ourselves for the moment. Let's think this is just a normal everyday match on the Pro Tour. Even if Aryna did play bad, there is absolutely no reason why she should be going and trashing her opponent for how they played. By taking away credit of Coco's win here, what she's essentially doing is discrediting her win and her efforts to achieve her dream. But let me tell you why this is pretty sad for me, because I've been a fan of Aryna for quite a long time. Back before Aryna was this big-name tennis player, she had a lot of issues with her mental side of the game. A lot of times, like one bad set or one bad serve would happen, and then she'd just go off, hit a lot of unforced errors, hit a lot of double faults, and it was just painful to watch. It was just like you were able to see her mentally collapse on court. But then she kind of had this realization moment of she had to believe in herself more, and she had to see kind of the more longer-term vision than just that moment. And that was kind of what took her to the next level, and what let her really break through that barrier that had kept her behind. It was a really beautiful thing to watch, but the reason that this is super sad is because it's almost like she's going back to that place she was in before. Either way, both these finals were a nail-biter in every single way, and the quality of tennis, regardless of what Aryna thinks, was great on both sides. Now, there is one thing I want to discuss about the event, and that's mainly the line-calling challenge system. There were so many times in this tournament where just weird calls would come out of the blue, and then Hawkeye would say, it's out, and then they would be like, nope, it's in, and then it would just be awful. For a Grand Slam event, you gotta think, there are only 4 of these a year, and they are the highest of the highest level in the world for tennis. We have to have a system that's more reliable than just human sight for this. There's literally people's livelihoods. Their entire careers are based on these calls. The most legendary of histories is made at this event. And you're telling me that we have a flawed system for calling lines? I mean, it's so important that every single other Grand Slam has taken steps in order to ensure that their line calling is automated and as accurate as physically possible. Even Wimbledon, the grandest and most sacred and traditional of tennis stages, is literally going to be using automated line calling this year. Now, if this was an ATP 250 or some, location or tournament with not that big a budget, I would be like, okay, yeah, it's fine. But this is a Grand Slam. All the budget goes into these events. This is literally what tennis is played for. But either way, I really do think that they need to switch over to automated line calling, because there have been some very questionable calls this tournament. This week I continued my training on the way to the tournament on the 21st. I'm really ramping up the amount of time I'm playing on court, trying to get in 1 to 2 matches a day instead of just 1 to 2 sets. Now, my goal for the 21st is of course not to win the tournament, but it's to be able to at least play the tournament in its entirety. But currently my stamina and muscle strength really isn't up to snuff for what it needs to be. And in order to get it to where it needs to be, I've kind of increased the amount of physical therapy I'm doing, the amount of sets and reps a day, and the amount of times I do it. I've also been shadowing some advanced level clinics at Happy Hollow, which is a club kind of by where I live. And I'm kind of trying to learn about their, skills training and their conditioning drills and their tennis drills and a lot of what they do here, just so that I can, implement that into my own training as well. Another thing I've started this week, do not tell my friend Coach Amir Rabar about it, is online coaching. This includes stat taking, shot analysis, tactical analysis, just generally all the smaller things that students should be able to kind of self-analyze, but sometimes they don't have that trained up yet, so I'll just step in and help them with it for now. Of course, the longer-term goal is to get them to that place where they can self-analyze, but it's very hard to do that from a distance or not in person with coaching. Now, something I wanted to cover today is the effect of social media on your gameplay. Now, I'm not sure you recognize this about your game, but at least with myself and my own game and my students' games, I tend to recognize this trend of going on social media with getting frustrated and losing matches quite often. Now, I'm a firm believer in thinking positive thoughts on court, because that really helps you through difficult situations and sometimes really stressful situations. Now, the very way that social media is built literally stresses you out psychologically. You cannot be stressed out when you walk on court. I often find that times where I'm spending time over usually 30 minutes on social media, I play much worse just because all of that is in my head. Now, in order to prevent that from happening during match play, I would recommend that the next time you go out, try not to be on social media before the match, and see how much changes about your mental process on court. I guarantee that you will almost immediately see positive results in your game. Now, something else I've been doing is I've been reading a lot lately, especially about tennis from previous professional coaches. This week I've been studying a book called Mental Tennis by Vic Braden. Vic was a previous head coach at Kalamazoo, and in his book, he specifically talks a lot of times about mental cues that really helped his professional players. I would suggest that anyone struggling with the mental part of tennis get this book by Vic Braden, because it will help you an absolute crap ton on court. And there is one other book on my reading list currently, which is called Welcome to the Zone, and that is by Scott Ford. I'll have more information on that one after I finish reading Vic Braden's Mental Tennis. As for the tournament organization, this week's been a bit slower. I haven't really done much. I'm kind of giving myself a break just to decompress and really get everything going properly again. And I'm also very focused on, getting my own physical health back to where I can compete again, which is the number one priority currently. I'm up to the point where I can do, at least 1 match a day for the entire week, which is really good. And in PT, I'm also up to the black band level, which is the highest just base band level that they give for people recovering. I was also able to participate in some conditioning drills that one of the pros was having the high school students do for a clinic at Happy Hollow, and that was really good. I haven't really done that since high school. But either way, I'm still very excited about June 21st. I think it's going to absolutely be an amazing tournament. Again, the Sioux City location, First Serve Tennis Academy, 6 indoor courts, 2 outdoor courts. Amazing location, amazing tournament director, of course, Isabel Wustapal, my good friend. And with that, we conclude this week's episode of TP's Tennis Podcast. Thanks for listening to today's episode of TP's Tennis Podcast. I've been your host, TP. New episodes of the podcast can be found on our YouTube channel, Thomas Pate, at 5 p.m. on Thursdays. As always, please leave what you would like to hear about next in the comments, and I will see you all next Thursday.